You and I talked some weeks ago. Actually, when we first began talking, I think in March, it was Women's History Month, right?
Yes.
And I should say this. I was in the D.C. area for a long time. I've been in Tampa for 4 years. And I was away from the company where I met you for some years before that. So we hadn't been in touch for a while. I had reason from another podcast to call you and ask you a question.
Yes.
I was talking to Karen Noonan, and a colleague who's been a podcast guest. She talked to me in our prep and in our episode about a behavior she exhibited in a meeting.
Mhm.
It wasn't crazy. It wasn't out of control. It was. In fact, some of her team were really happy to see her say what she said to a particular individual. But she later got called on it by her supervisor
Mhm.
and said, at our level, that's being emotional.
Mhm.
And she said, well, I've heard you say many things that were worse than that, but you're a guy. So I'm a woman. Is this about gender or is this about the behavior, no matter who's exhibiting the
Yes.
behavior? So we had that conversation. It caused me to call you and a few other women that I worked with to ask if I had ever behaved in a way as a superior that said to you there was some gender bias there.
Mhm.
And you thought about it and said, it was, I told Karen this and she laughed. You thought about it and you said, no, but. But there was this one time. And you explained you recalled a situation, described it to me, that I made you wonder if a decision I made might have had something to do with you being a woman of color. So maybe not so much a woman, but a woman of color.
Mhm.
And we had that conversation, you and I, and it was it was a fascinating conversation. I'm really glad we had it. I'm glad you told me what you told me. I couldn't recall the situation you described. And I remember you saying that you thought about it and made sure it wasn't you imagining something. Was I really acting that way? And it's hard to know.
It's very
But I
hard to know.
respected that you actually ran through that process. And then I said to you, can't tell you what happened, but I can tell you this. I regret having not, you had offered to help me with something I didn't take you up on. And I said, I regret not having taken you up on your offer because I could have used the help. I asked some others to help me who were white, which had made you wonder, is that what this is about? And I
Mhm.
said, I'm sorry that that happened that way and appeared that way. I don't usually operate with any intentionality like that, and I try to be very aware of my own biases. Some could escape me, but I try to be very aware of them. But I remember saying to you, well, I wish I'd taken you up on it because I could have used the help and I would have enjoyed working with you. So I wanted to recall that story between us. It was current on our minds because of the highlighting the issue of bias in the workplace and
Mhm.
implicit bias. How do you see the relationship between those kinds of issues between people that are maybe at work but not a work issue? What do you see as the connection? Or is the same thing going on in different parts of our lives? Is it something different? What do you think?
I think that the attributes are very much the same. For instance, in the situation that I described to you, there was a disconnect. There was a lack of understanding, so there wasn't
Mm-hmm.
a sending and receiving, right?
Some door didn't open.
Yeah, the door did not open, right? I think even with Karen in the situation that she faced, that there was definitely a disalignment stemming from where. That's the question. That comes into the maybe unconscious biases that
Good
you
point.
don't even know that you have.
Good point.
But there was a disconnect between her and leadership. There was a misalignment in their connection, in their communication,
Mm-hmm.
in their perception,
Mm-hmm.
very much in their perception of how that situation should have been handled. And when things are not in alignment, when you're not on the same page, it's the same attributes, right? There's a disconnect. We're not sending and receiving. The door's closed, right? Definitely, there's along the way something key. There's a misalignment,
Mm-hmm.
and it caused a disruption here. There's a disruption that has happened. I think each attribute takes on a nuance depending on the situation
Mm-hmm.
that it's that you're in.
That seems
I
to make
think that
sense. Yeah.
yes, but key attributes, it's all the same. It's all those things come into play. They all lead to that not being able, or at that moment, not being on the same page, not being able to get on the same page. And then and even the difficulty in seeing the opportunity in it,
Mm-hmm.
depending on, because you're not sending and receiving, the door is closed. And so you're only basing the conversation out of your side, what you're feeling. And you had said this, I don't want to do this. What you're feeling, how you're viewing your
Mm-hmm.
emotions, everything. And it's in a capsule, all in you.
I like hearing from you when I call to ask you about my behavior as a supervisor. I like in a team when someone else sees something different and sizes it up in a different way. I like hearing those things because to me it's an opportunity, to use your word, for me to add to what I know.
Mm-hmm.
And then when we do that together as a couple, as a team, parent, child, whatever it is, when we do it together, I think something kind of magical can happen, Lola. It's not just being on the same page in that situation. It can be being on the same page a little bit more beyond the situation. You start to
Yeah.
build some trust with each other in the relationship way of the trust is bigger than a particular situation. You come
Mm-hmm.
to have a better relationship, which over time, if you keep doing these kinds of things, the relationship strengthens. You're probably better and better over time in any situation. What are your
Yeah.
tell me your thoughts? I've been rambling.
I told you when you had called me that I just commend you, because the action that you took to just reach out and get that input, to get that insight. A lot of people don't do that. I am who I am. I think Popeye said that best, right? Um, oh my gosh, I'm dating my age.
uh,
Yeah,
yeah, but I never thought about being I am who I am being a limitation.
to a certain degree, it is. It is, because then
But I mean, it doesn't have to be.
it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be, but it could become that
Oh yeah,
when then where's the room for improvement? And I share this, I tell this to my, especially my grandkids, but to my daughters too, and try to live it out even in my life in certain areas. We, just as human beings, we are better when we're growing, when we're knowing in some way, shape, form, or fashion. If you have I am who I am attitude, then there's no growth, nor is there any opportunity for that.
I agree.
In a situation where, for example, in the migration that we're dealing with right now, if there is no us even getting on the same page, everything that's going into that act to get there, the conversations, the
Yeah,
feelings, the all of that is growth. And the outcome is that that growth has happened along the way, that has even enabled us and allowed us to get on the same page, to get to the end result, the way that we want to
together, right,
successfully, to
right.
be together, to be the lead, hitting on all the factors that we said. The migrate, this is happening, but how we embrace it and the outcome of it, we have full control of that, and this is what we want to do. So
Good point.
reaching and all that, and then
That's a good point. We don't have control over what's been decided. We have control over what we decide, how we do it.
exactly, and just being in one accord, which is what getting on the same page is, and how to get there, what we're going to absorb together, embracing the differences, making them opportunities, finding the winning ways, the winning factors, the winning nuances of the application. Something can be as simple as that. And then one thing I love that you mentioned are the almost intangible wins that happen along the way,
Mm-hmm.
that you strengthen the relationship. And this is, I think, if anything that I'm good at, I'm very good. I wouldn't think so, because when people say, "Are you a people person?" I'm quick to say no. I don't like people. But are you an extrovert? No, I'm an introvert. But when I say that, people laugh at me. But I'm very good at building teams. I'm very good at building camaraderie with people. I'm very good at making people feel comfortable around me. And that has made me a wonderful manager when I was in that role. That made me excel in what I do, even in the role that I am right now, which is a project manager. So the intangible wins would be everything that you just said. It's some type of respect, the growth and respect for one another, the
Mm-hmm.
willingness to work with one another, the level of understanding that you have where if another project comes along, we're still going to go through, but it's going to be easier. I have a colleague that I work in, and she tickles me because she's ruffled feathers all the time, all the time. And when I first came into this role, it was very hard. It took some time to, she had walls. She
Mm-hmm.
definitely was, I am who I am. I've
Mm-hmm.
been here for since the beginning of the
Time.
time, and this is the way it happens, and this, that, and the other. Don't tell me. I write down everything, even as you're speaking. She was that person. And so fast forward now, I've been here for 5, 6 years, and she still is that person.
Mm-hmm.
But the difficulty we had, we couldn't communicate well. I honestly, after getting off the phone with her, I know I needed some Kahlua and coffee. It was that type of conversation, every conversation, and wasn't even sure if she heard me. It was just very much
That's hard.
and
That's stressful.
now through, because we've had gone through shifts and things, we've had gone through projects or even in her realm, I've had to assist her through some of her deliverables and projects and stuff. And so the intangible things, everything that you mentioned, the communication may not be what you would call better, but it's in a way that we're giving and receiving, right? You
Mm-hmm.
hearing me?
Some doors
So
opened.
exactly, the doors open in some way. So when we work together again, it gets easier. We're able to do it better. We're able to do it faster. We
Yeah.
get aligned quicker. May not agree on everything, but there is
You could
something.
even narrow the differences faster.
Exactly, exactly. There's a connection that has happened that is foundational in the relationship, and it just builds over time as you work together, easier, better. Those are those intangible wins that, like, you mentioned them, that are just key, very much so.
I have a question for you while I'm writing down some notes here. I know you, and I would take a guess at what you did, broad approach, and you tell me if I'm right because I want to ask you about it. You're pretty cool, and even if you had a reaction where maybe you didn't feel so cool inside, I think you probably remain pretty cool on the exterior,
Mhm.
and you keep your wits about you, meaning you don't get spun up on something in your mind. You might stay focused, and you might ask me about something if I used a word or phrase. If I was kind of intense in my communication, you might gently, very respectfully, just ask me more about it.
Mhm.
So where you might have had a reaction to it, you're not going to act on that feeling. You're going to
Mhm.
just, you would ask me about it. My guess is over time she learned to trust you because you weren't worried about her bark. You could listen to the bark and you could say, Tom, all right, I'm not, I followed you this far. I didn't get that part. Tell me more about that. Like if you act like you used the word curiosity very early in the conversation, and I noted it. If you act like you're not act, if you are curious and you say, I want to understand. I don't know if I'm going to agree, but I want to understand. What did you mean when you said, or even you feel very strongly about it. So something is important to you. Tell me more about that because I'm not clear on what matters, what's important, or you could ask the question in different ways. My
Mhm.
guess is you didn't become afraid of the bark or defensive with the bark, that you just treated it respectfully and tried to understand it better. And then over time, she felt comfortable, a trust built between you, and maybe even a pattern of communication between you where it got efficient, like you said.
Yes.
Because I know you, I wanted to ask the question that way. Did it start with you asking for more information about the stuff that might have made you want to have a Kahlua and a Kahlua? But did you ask for more information to see if you could understand better?
I absolutely did. Absolutely did. I asked for more information to see if, uh, so I could get a better understanding of
Right.
where she mentally, where she was
Right. Right.
emotionally, where she was. Why do you feel this way? Why are you so intense
Mm-hmm.
about something?
Mm-hmm.
And then,
People don't get asked that question.
yeah. And so when they open up and at least give you a glimpse into that, you could take that information and say, okay, so maybe it's, you don't even like doing this. part of your,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
this is almost an interruption in your day. And because you don't do it often, you don't feel comfortable with it. So anything that has to do, it becomes a little on the
Mm-hmm.
volatile side. Okay, I got it. So that means I need to support you more. That changes the way I'm going to interact with you. You know,
See, that's a valuable piece of information.
exactly, I'm going to find those weak spots, the things that are concerning you, those holes, those sores about this
Mm-hmm.
conversation, about the situation, about this act, and I'm going to find a way to support you. If you can find, and when you're able to, and this so helps with getting aligned, with getting people in alignment so much. As they're talking, as they are um, sharing their voice, as they're showing you their disconnect and their, aversion to supporting, becoming a part of however you want to put it. If you ask questions, even the uncomfortable ones, even when they come back and they bark, even when they shut down, and
Yeah.
then you're able to see the sore spots as they see them and can offer support there, man,
That opens doors.
that that is that's those are the little keys that unlocks the locks, that opens the doors to
That's
get you
beautiful.
through,
I
to get
love
you
it.
down the path.
I love it.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
And my guess is you also ask more questions than you spent more time asking questions than you did telling her what you thought.
Exactly.
Now, there's a
Absolutely.
time when you've got to do that,
Yes.
including, your feelings about situations are legitimate and valid too. You have something at stake. And as a leader of a team, the team's got something at stake. As a member of a contractor, a company on a contract, you've got things at stake.
Mhm.
And you've got to
Mhm.
have, but you probably timed it. Here's the other thing I've noticed. Sorry, my mind switched. Here's the other thing I've noticed when I've done what you described. I get more information that's useful in helping me explain my concerns or my objectives, not objections. I can better tie it to where they're at, what they're thinking, what they're feeling.
Absolutely. Are we speaking the same language? Yes. That's what that is. Yes.
Yeah. And so if you can resist, you remember Dan Morford?
Yes.
Dan and I I'd released 2 episodes this week and last week. There were two. I cut ours into 2 parts, and we talked more about social and political situation in the country. And he talked
Mhm.
about what I was just about to say. He talked about a lot about we're not having a dialogue with each other if we're just both shooting our opinions and our views at each other. Opinions and views could be valid. There could be good information in them. But if you're just firing them at each other, we're not having a dialogue. He's always was real big on the word and the notion and the act of dialogue.
Mhm.
And so if you can resist the temptation, this is what made me think of him. When you find yourself thinking of what you're going to say while someone's talking, you're not listening. Right? If you can resist the
Yes.
temptation to shoot back what you think and do what you did and pause, ask for more information so you get some layers or levels of meaning. You have your own aha moment.
Mhm.
And you might say to yourself, I understand why she feels so strongly. Maybe she comes across in ways in the organization that make people not want to listen to her, so she doesn't feel very
Mhm.
heard. Maybe she was blamed for something one time in her career that really she didn't really do, or maybe we don't know what it is. But
Mhm.
when you learn those things, to me it gives you more information that's, for me, context for what I want to contribute to the conversation. I have better context now, and I can connect things better. I couldn't do that if the first words out of my mouth after you stopped talking were, let me tell you what I think.
Yes.
Because I probably didn't hear what you said anyway, if I'm ready to tell you what I think. And if I paused and said, wow, you gave me a lot of information. I know more now, but I have some more questions. Can I ask you to elaborate on some of these things so I know more? If you pause and go down that path, I always found a more effective way Because in every situation, we've got something that we need to be bringing to it too. We're not
Mm-hmm.
just doing someone else's. Even as a contractor, you're not doing their bidding. You got a contract. You've got
Mm-hmm.
things that you're legally obligated for and be
Obligated
measured
to.
about, right? And you're going to get paid for or not. So you can't just do what someone tells you. You've got something at stake that you bring to it as an equal. So you're not abandoning that, but you're getting more information so you can have a better conversation when it's time for you to bring something. Sometimes I find people give you solutions to problems that you were wrestling with that you hadn't thought of just by listening to their perspective on something. Oh,
Exactly.
okay, I hadn't thought of it that way. Now I could do it. Just is a little aha moment within a bigger aha moment.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Have you had training in that? Is this just a Lola thing from, this is for
It
the
is. It is. It's a natural thing. It's a Lola thing. And now I have taken training to optimize it,
sure,
communication classes,
sure,
and just even the ones that go into more diversity and inclusion and seeing
sure.
people from different walks of life and appreciating their backgrounds and where they come from, all of that. But it's pretty much a natural gift. The great example with this colleague of mine is, and I think for her personality, this weighs more than everything. Even as you're trying to get into alignment, even when you're trying to get on the same page, if you go about it also with the idea of just respect, not I come with my PhDs and my little acronyms behind my name, know me. I come with mine, know me. Um, my voice is better, anything like that, right? It's just giving the simple things that your mama probably taught you from being a child.
Mm-hmm.
Just
Mm-hmm.
respect. Huge, huge. And I think with her personality, coming into this program, the lead that was in place before I came on
Mm-hmm.
board, and it was a different dynamic. And so coming in and just really opening the door, opening the conversations, even through her bark sessions, and they were definitely sessions, and just making sure that the underlying thing was respect. Very much key. And I do that with my teams and leaders, even when I was the in leadership and management, just just respect.
Mm-hmm.
Respect your voice. Know that you are heard. That is also a key. It is it's a very important key
Mm-hmm.
in
It is.
assisting this and being almost like the cart as you're pushing along the rails to the road of alignment. It's that, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
it's hard to have much else in a relationship, trust or
and it goes into everywhere. Trust,
yeah,
relationships, the
yeah.
relationship I have with my grands, trust and believe. One thing that is key to their self confidence is I do respect them. I do respect them.
That's a great point.
So that it plays into everything, and
Wow.
it's such an important key. It that in that realm, it builds up their self confidence. They understand their worth because of the respect that they get from their nana, and love and everything too. But it plays into all those realms in a professional
Yeah.
environment.
Oh, Lola, actually,
People decide yeah.
that's profound. We could dig into an hour about what you just said because I hadn't thought about it that way with children. How would a child learn to respect themselves if they didn't get respect from those around them at the youngest ages?
Mhm.
How would you ever learn it?
Mhm.
You don't
Because you
have the
definitely don't learn it by being told.
well, and you don't have the wherewithal to judge, to separate yourself from what
Mhm.
mom says, dad says, grandma says, and parse it and categorize it and say, I don't accept that. No, you're little. You're just being
Mhm.
told what you are by someone else, and you're probably internalizing it.
Yep.
If you're shown disrespect, that's all you know.
That's all you know.
If you're shown respect, you're not only teaching someone to be respectful, you're teaching them to respect themselves.
Exactly.
That's powerful. I never thought of it. I mean, I'm sure there's libraries full of research on that kind of thing, right? Child development. But I never thought about it because in the flash, the way you said it, I connected it to the work situation.
Mhm.
Look, let's be honest. If someone's a bit of a bully in conversation, they're not being respectful.
Oh, absolutely not.
We could understand the reasons why. It doesn't make it okay. It just makes it more understandable. It may be easier. You're trying to find ways to work with, right?
And truth be told, you're still, the door is not fully open,
Right.
right? There's something, some type of wall, something's being blocked. And so you're not getting the full.
Well, and I could hear, you're right.
Yeah.
And I could hear you in your thoughts going, don't test me. You don't need to test me. You don't need to test me. If you tell me what's on your mind, I'm going to respect it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to try to do something with it in my role. Don't make me work. Don't test me to make me work to get there. Just talk to me. That's so funny because I could hear it in your head, and because I feel the same. I was like, no, it's not necessary. Don't do that.
Totally.
I don't need to be tested. Trust me one time. Trust me one time.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm good to my word, you'll know, and if I'm not, you're gonna know.
You're gonna know, and then you can go from there.
Never trust me again if you don't want to, but stop testing me. Because that's not respectful. The irony is we're not respectful of ourselves when we act that way.
Exactly.
Now, I can say this about myself. I've had probably more temper over the course of my lifetime than I wished I had. I learned it from my dad, not blaming my dad, but saw the behaviors and I've copied them. Been through marriage counseling, been through individual counseling. I've spent a lot of time thinking about those kinds of things, like just self-reflection. It took me a long time to figure it out, Lola. It took me a long time to realize that when I was so upset about a situation, it was often relationships. It could have happened at work, but it was much more relationships, in personal, private relationships. If I got to that point where I was that wound up, that I had to raise my voice to be heard, first of all, I was not being heard. So there's a damn fool thing to do because that's a bad means to the end. You're not being heard. You're shutting down.
The exact opposite.
Shutting doors, shutting down communication. Second, you got yourself in a bad place. Does not matter what anyone else is doing. You got yourself in a bad place and you're actually not being respectful of yourself. I learned, and it kind of came to me in a flash, like after years, step back and go, no, you know what? This is a sign that I'm past some point where I should have made a different choice. And the reason I'm acting the way I'm acting is because I didn't make that choice sooner or earlier. And now I'm feeling kind of desperate.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to show that desperation and that stress through the voice, the temper. And it's bad all the way around. And it starts with, you know what, if you respected what you need, if you're not getting what you need, and you recognize that, and you respect that for yourself, you just make a different choice calmly.
Mm-hmm.
Not without pain, not without sacrifice, maybe not without loss. But you can make a different choice. When you got yourself to the point, Lou, where you were showing that kind of behavior to be heard, you had it all backwards. You had it all turned around and tangled up. And so when you are a bully in communication, you're actually not being respectful of yourself first, and then disrespecting the person you're talking to second. And if you unwind all that, you get back to yourself. You get back to the origin. You get back to and you get back to the only thing you can control.
Mm-hmm. You're absolutely right.
My thoughts, my feelings, my choices. So maybe have made different choices, not just to not raise the voice. I spent a lot of years like trying to not raise the voice when I felt like raising my voice. No, when I had this realization, the urge went away. I was like, oh, you know what? I see it now.
I don't have to do that.
I see it now. I don't have to do that. And it wasn't about just what was communicated from me to someone else. It was, I can do this in a different way in my mind and my heart. It's going to mean different paths, but that's what I was actually almost afraid of before.
Mm-hmm.
I come from a long line of divorce. And when the girls, I told my dad one time, every grandparents got divorced, aunts and uncles got divorced, and everybody they remarried had been divorced. And I told my dad one time, I was a grown man, I said, Dad, we don't have a family tree. We have a divorce shrub. We got this little thing, and there's all these offshoots of marriage, divorce, marriage, divorce, marriage, divorce, marriage, divorce. He laughed his ass off because in a flash, it's like he saw it. He knew it was true. So when I got married to the girl's mom, I didn't want to get divorced. I wanted them to grow up in a family that was a nuclear family and come back from college to their room, right?
Yeah.
Well, it wasn't destined for that. And I didn't want to accept that.
Mm-hmm.
And so then once you make that choice, it's avoidance, really. Ironic, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's avoidance. Once you avoid...
Same attributes, yep.
Once you avoid being honest with yourself about something, it just gets more complicated after that.
It gets much more complicated.
And you're right about the attributes, because same thing with people at work. People on the team see things. And they know, or they're sizing it up in some way, but they see things and they're thinking about it. And you might not be thinking that they're seeing things and thinking, but they are. And then they might be more onto something than you wish. And people could be making things up in their minds that aren't good for anybody, so that's just bad for the team. I always love talking to you because we get deep. We got deep on a prep call. We got deep on this call. Is there anything else you wanted to go over?
No, I think this has been a wonderful conversation. I was going to say, we do get deep. Let me find out. When is your birthday? Is this
September.
Scorpio?
Virgo
thing. See, that's why. That's the problem. That's the problem right there.
What's the problem?
It's in our nature, and then we get together, and then, it explodes into this. That's the problem.
We didn't get much to the social and political issues that we could talk about. I'd love to lift some of these same ideas out of the work, what was more of a work conversation, and just plunk them down in some social and political conversation. Maybe we just take a pass at that another time.
Yes, absolutely.
I would love to have
wonderful conversation.
I've enjoyed it very much. I have had listeners tell me that they enjoy sort of eavesdropping in on these kind of conversations where they're hearing people. I think that was a very real conversation, and I always hope we have something in the conversation that's an aha moment for a listener.
Absolutely, that's the whole point.
And that they can go, all right, let me rethink that. Let me try something this way. I'm going into a conversation.
How about, oh damn, that's me.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah, exactly. So I've enjoyed it very much, and we covered quite a bit about work situations. Mm-hmm. But we went deep into what was personal about it, meaning how we how we work, how we think and feel, and how we interact with each other. Yes. Thank you, Lola. Thank you. Thank you so much. This has been an honor and definitely a pleasure. Truly thank you. Have a wonderful weekend. Happy Easter. Likewise. Same to you. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. And that's how we see it, my friends. I want to thank Lola for recording today's episode. You can find it at iseewhatyoumean.castos.com, plus all the usual places. Send questions and suggestions through your app. Subscribe and give me a 5-star rating unless you can't, in which case, tell me why. And join me next week when we take another look at how to get on the same page and stay there, unless we shouldn't.